We'll do one with the negative values of these, and then we'll look at a graph that's already made. Dinosaurs, that's all we have in my house. My son loves dinosaurs, and I do too. Alright, so this time I'm doing the same exact concept except a -2 on the front. So we have a negative reflection here, which is still very easy to work with. So the -3 here means we are going to go 3 down for our midline. Remember, that's the midline. This amplitude, don't worry about the negative right now. The amplitude is 2. So we're going to do, again, if we're counting, let's say we're counting by ones again, we're going to go 2 away from here. That's going to be the highest point of our graphs. And we're going to go 2 away in the other direction, and that is the lowest point of our graphs. So we have a nice little window of where we're going to be. So I'm counting obviously by ones on the y-axis. That's all we need to know. That tells us right there. What I am going to have to look at, we obviously have a shift of left 3 units, and then this frequency, remember we're going to say the original period of 2 pi, and we're going to divide it by 4. So our period right now is going to be pi over 2, which is kind of insane. That's very, very, very tiny. If we did the graph we did on the last page, if we did this graph with a pi over 2, we would have to fit one of these entire waves would have to fit from here to here. So we're not going to set it up the same exact way. What we're going to do this time, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This is 4 pi. So I should be 2 pi over 4 pi. So it's actually the pi's just divide out, and we get 1/2 as our period. So what we're going to do, we don't have pi's in our increments here, so I'm not going to count by pi at all. I'm going to count by numbers. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th block, I'm going to call that 1. 1, 2, 3, 4th block, I'm going to call that 2. We're going to call this 3. So there's -1, 1, 2, 3, the 4th one is -2. That gives us a little bit more room, not a ton, but it gives us more room to fit a wave of 1/2 in there. So the period, sorry about the mix up before, I apologize. The period is actually 1/2. Okay, that's the trickiest part of this whole graph. So this is a sine graph. We're going to start at 0, 0. So we're going to start right there on the line. It's being shifted where? It's being shifted 3 to the left. So if we're starting right here, we have to go 3 to the left. So I need to make more room here. So here's 0, 0. We're going to start 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to need to go all the way out to here. So let's try that again. We're going 1, 2, 2. There's -3 right there. So this graph's going to start right there. Yeah, I should have thought this out a little bit better, but we're all learning. Alright, so there's my graph's beginning point. And if I do what I would do from here is I would use a 1/2 period. So basically 1/2 unit away. Here's -3, here's -2, so that's going to be halfway between. I'm going to finish this graph right in the same space. Then halfway between there, it's going to hit the middle. Then halfway between those, it's going to hit the top. Now, it's a negative graph, so instead of increasing then decreasing, it's going to be reflected. So we're actually going to go and hit the low point right there and the high point right there. That right there is our first wave, and we can build the rest of the graph off of that wave. Alright, started here, finished exactly 1/2 unit away, cut it in half for a middle, and then we cut those 2 points in half to get the lowest point, and those 2 points in half to get the highest point. And there we could just make, so we can see that every half of a block, or every pi over 4, we are actually going to be, I'm sorry, pi over 8. Every pi over 8, we're actually going to be hitting a new special point. So we're going downwards, so this is going to be there. Then here we're going to be in the middle, and halfway we're going to be at the top. Then back on the line we're in the middle, then the bottom, then the middle, then the top, then the middle. I mean, I made mine pretty large, so it's going to take a long time to fill this thing out. But that's what it's going to look like. And we can keep doing this, but you get the idea. I'll do a couple more just to remind you. So halfway is low, halfway is the middle, halfway between these is at the top, middle. I'll go all the way to the y-axis. Bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom, middle, top, middle. And we can keep doing that as long as we want. Okay, but you kind of get the idea, right? And if we did the same thing, of course I told you before, and I'm going to do this again. If we did the same thing, but this time we did the cosine, not much is going to change here. So we'll do it again. F of x equals negative 2 cosine of 4 pi times x plus 3 minus 3. So we're doing the exact same process, but what would happen here, so we do the midline, the two pink lines coming off of here and here. And here would be the starting point for sine, but the starting point for cosine would actually be at the top. It could be 1 away, 2 away, 3 away, whatever the amplitude is. That's where the cosine starts. So we would be we'd shift it 3 to the right, or 3 to the left, I should say, which would be exactly where I started the last one, but we'd be starting at the top. Alright, so instead of starting right on the midline, we'd be starting up here. And it is negative, so we would actually reflect it, and we would start at the bottom. So what would happen there is the same process, but we just kind of, we have to be very careful here. It's shifted over ever so slightly. So we're getting a graph that looks like that. Alright, and we can do the same thing we just did. And I can graph to that axis. But you just take your time. Every halfway point is a new special point. Your special points are always on the midline, at the top of the graph, at the bottom of the graph. So I've got myself second guessing myself here because there's so many points. Who thinks of an example like this on a Saturday night? Don't worry, I'm sure you'll understand one day. Whoops, as I missed. So you can see the ever so slight shift there. And this will continue all the way on through. I just don't feel like wasting your time doing all that. Alright, and that's, so I want you to really realize that everything works the same way. The only thing that ever changes on these graphs are the starting points. This horizontal shift is really the big contributing factor.